I need to say welcome to the Casa del Rey Moro, House of the Moorish King. I'm Professor Chuck Ambers, and we've been here about 12 years, and we try to deal with 6,000 years of African world history, if anybody can do that. We have an African marketplace outside that we sell products from a dozen African countries to help us finance the facility. We don't get any city, county, state, federal tax funds, and so we run this totally out of our own pocket, and we put money into the hands of starving African children. Inside, more research material than San Diego State on African Spanish history, and that's why we call ourselves the House of the Moorish King, Casa del Rey Moro, okay? I got started in the business as a school teacher when they asked me on the Mexican border in the bilingual program to teach about Latin America, and I didn't see any Africans in Latin America, and I said they're down there, so we have to go find them. So on sabbatical leave and summer vacations, I found myself traveling to 18 countries in Central South America, the Caribbean, practicing my Spanish and Portuguese, and we ran into all kind of Africans that we could talk about, and so that's part of what this facility is like. And we're right here in the heart of Old Town San Diego, where the first Europeans landed, Juan Cabrillo, in 1542. And on his ship, he had people of African descent that looked like me, and that's why I decided to go traveling into these countries to do research. You're looking at the King of Spain. This graphic is 131 years old. It is the Grand Palace of Alhambra in Granada, Spain, where the Moors controlled Spain, Portugal, parts of France, Germany, and Italy for over 700 years. It was painted in 1878 by an Austrian artist, Edward Charlemont. It's been in the European museums for 131 years. The book is also over 100 years old. The Story of the Moors in Spain, written by Stanley Lane Poole, a British scholar, in 1886. So when you have the book on your cocktail table, the graphic on your wall, you have two Europeans from two different countries speaking two different languages, both of them over 100 years ago, trying to tell you that about 65% of the Moors were indigenous black Africans, and they left a bloodline in southern Europe that changed the history of the world. So with Columbus and Cortez and Pizarro and Balboa, and right here in San Diego with Juan Cabrillo, you have people of African descent on those first Spanish ships, and we've been here since day one. You're in the Africa room, and we go back 6,000 years in this room. From ancient Egypt, Kemet, where indigenous black Africans control. But we'd like to highlight some of the metallurgical signs from other parts of the African continent. So this is a bronze piece from ancient Nigeria, Ife Benin. Queen Mother from ancient Nigeria, and we sell quite a few of them, and they talk about not just fine arts, but the 2,000 years that Africans performed metallurgical science. And they put some of those metallurgical scientists, Africans in the slave ships, brought them over here to pick cotton and didn't teach us anything about their metallurgical science. So this is not only a fine arts piece, but some history of 2,000 years of African metallurgical science. These are the 4 canopic jars that the pharaoh's body parts were placed in during the mummification process. I shipped those back my first trip from Egypt. And if you use the word association, kill, K-I-L-L, kidney, intestines, lungs, and liver, those were generally the 4 body parts that were there. And this up here is King Tut's sarcophagus. 6 feet tall, 300 pounds of gold, with precious inlaid lapis lazuli, red coral turquoise. That would cost you about $500 million to try and have some artisans to recreate that today. What you're looking at now are some photos of statues, carvings, and mummies. No line drawings, photos that of pharaohs with dreadlocks. Hollywood has never shown you a pharaoh, a statue of a pharaoh with braids. This is only one of 8 exhibits that I have that I rent into 10 states, 9 countries, and 3 languages. King Tut's grandmother, a statue. A carving on the temple walls of her daughter-in-law. But this is what Hollywood wants to tell you that this lady looks like. So you see what they've done to us? So that's why I have exhibits of photos of statues, carvings, and mummies so that we can put their names and faces back in chronological order. And so these are some of the big charts that we sell, 6,000 years of African history. This is Governor Pio Pico, the last governor of California under Mexican control. He was of mixed African descent. In the 1800s, his family were listed as mulattoes. He was born in 1801 in the San Gabriel Mission. And these are the 44 people who left the San Gabriel Mission to found the city of Los Angeles. Out of 44, 26 of them were of African descent. And so he's just one of the mulattoes, and he signed over the state of California from Mexico to the United States when the border crossed to Mexicans. Mexicans didn't cross the border. Okay, here you have first day covers for historical stamps. These are collector's items. The first day that every stamp comes out, you have about 70,000 envelopes that are called first day of issue. And they're 20, 30, 40, 50 years old and will cost you $20, $30, $40, $50 a piece. I have a whole collection of almost every African-American stamp, 131 African-American stamps released by the United States Post Office, of people like the first person who invented a machine to sew the tops to the shoes to the bottom of the shoes. And each one of these are historical people from different walks of life, and that's just part of the 131 stamps of African Americans in the United States. This is Trooper Jones Morgan. He was 110 years old. We had a 15-month search out for him across the nation. He rode in 1898, Cuba, Spanish-American War, Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders. General Colin Powell is presenting him that day because of this miniature bronze statue of the Buffalo Soldiers. There's only 100 of them in the whole entire world. The number 7 is in the Pentagon, and you folks own it because your tax dollars paid for it. And I will show you the number 3 limited edition because I own it. You're looking at the number 3 limited edition of 100 Buffalo Soldier miniature bronze statues done by Eddie Dixon from Lubbock, Texas. This is the famous statue that General Colin Powell helped us to unveil at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas in 1992 with 18,000 spectators. We had 2 full mass units, hospitals, of African American doctors and nurses in 1940s. They wouldn't allow them to work on European American or white Americans. They only worked on African Americans, Japanese Americans, Mexican Americans, and Native Americans. But we've been there since day one. But you didn't see not one of these brown faces running for the chopper during that TV series from Hollywood, MASH. I retired early from the public schools because I was angry that we had so much raw material and the school district didn't want to do anything with writing it up and introducing it and adding it to the curriculum, that I started my own museum here in Old Town 12 years ago where the first Europeans landed. We're right here in Old Town where, as I said, 5 to 7 million tourists come because we have the first state park of the first Europeans that landed in San Diego. So I put my museum right here in this historical core district. I still teach 4 college classes in rotation. I do lectures and we install exhibits into 10 states, 9 countries, and 3 languages.